Okay, this is part 2 of tracking. We're going to try to go after this massive homework problem that I know a lot of you had some problems with and make some sense of it. So just to get started, I shaded in what would be the front face here red, and all these other parts here correspond with parts that are in the back just a little bit. So if we're going through here, we can see U to V has to be from that 23 to 25 range. AA to double B is going to be here, so we can see there's something going back there, which is what this line represents. So it's real important to make sure these line up, and that's probably why you had some trouble with your homework, is because in the original drawing they didn't line up. We can see this top part here, F to G, lines up with 24 to 26. That section. H to I lines up with 29 to 31 right there. And then we've got our G to A, which is here, our little top shelf from A to B, and going down from B to H in those sections. So one thing that can help, I think, you visualize this, is to kind of look at a 3D representation of this as well. And so here's that front face, and everything else must be somewhere behind it. And maybe we can kind of get those both in the frame together. Not quite, it's not going to happen. So then the next thing we want to start looking at is the top here, and maybe we can kind of visualize how the top fits into this 3D pictures as well. And I guess I can zoom out a little bit to maybe get a little bit more in there. So we know what the front looks like there. We kind of get the idea that there's two shelves here that are at the top, and that this middle section, because of where it lines up here with D and with C, must be where that lower hidden shelf is. And then we can see the base here, it makes sense, is that line that goes all the way around. So we can start drawing a few of these characteristics in. So we'll start with these two shelves here. And if I want to, just for illustrative purposes, those are these sections. And we can try to figure out where that is. It's a little tricky, but this base that goes around is a little bit easier, actually. And I kind of marked those points ahead of time so I could do this quickly, so I wouldn't be counting on the video ridiculously long. And the rest of this base going around actually ends up being hidden. And we also need to figure out where this groove is. We know it's one more across from there, and we know it's 1.5 down from there. So if I go one across to here, 1.5 down to there, that's where those intersect. Sorry, 1.5 down. There. Sorry for the crudeness there. So that's that little shelf, and we would imagine, and I'll just do it kind of shorthanded there, this is going to go behind there, and these go through. So this is that little groove there. And if I color in this part here, that's the part you can see from the top. The other part you cannot. And so now we can even go ahead, and if we were to shade in this side here, we can see that corresponds to that side over there. We can finish. We've got that little nook there we gotta get, and that's both layers. And so I know I'm going through the isometric drawing really quickly, but part of it is just to help you visualize what this whole thing looks like. So now we've got this green section that goes all the way around here. And we've got our slanted side that we see here. So as we're looking at these, this is I, J, S, T. We also learned in our last video that as we're looking down, I and S look to be the same spot right there, and J and T look to be the same spot. So these are some of the things that we had from the last time. So hopefully you're starting to get a little better idea how this visualizes. Let's look through some of the questions they have. The first one was, what goes with 17, 24, and 23? So 17, 24, and 23. As we look down from the overhead view, we can see that there has to be a little bit of a base here of these triangles on both sides. And from the side view, we can see here that 17 is going to be K, 23 is K, and 24 is L. So it's this little triangle section here that's somewhat hidden. I could draw a hidden dash line there. So 17, 24, and 23, starting at 17, is going to be K and L in the edge there. So we've got a surface here, and then from the front, all we can see is a line, K and L. Remember, you have a surface, it's going to be lines in the other two views unless it's inclined or oblique. Our next one, going down from the front, we're looking at EJ, which is E all the way to J across there. So the fact that it's not saying F, G, H, or I means we got to skip some points. So as we start, we can see E is over here, and that is this green surface that goes around the top that we had been looking at before. So as we define the green surface and we start with E, we go 17, 1. We don't say 2 or 3 because they're not vertices. We do 4, 22, 31, not 30 because it's not a vertex, 29, 8, not 7, not 6, 5, 26, and 24. So you've got quite a few to list there. I think I got those all right, which is a lot. So that's how some of those pairing goes for the surfaces. Let's take a look at some of the edges. We have an edge ST here. And as we look back, that's this little triangle here, S to T. You've kind of got two choices what it can be, depending on where you are. We know that this is S, and we know either of those two can be T. So S to T is either going to be 31 to 32 or 31 to 22, depending on which of those two lines you take. And that's only because it's an edge. That S to T could actually help to define that surface if we wanted to, but the question asks for an edge. For number 6, we've got G to A, which is from here to the top there. We kind of already talked about the slanted plane right here. And if we color in, you know, that's hidden on this view, but it'd be BH on the other side, which is the yellow part on the other side. We could kind of color that in there. That's our whole G to A area. So if we're just using it as an edge, we can pick G to A to be 26 to 27. Or from the back here, that would be the same edge, 5 to 9, that we would see there. So these are some of the ways. I think if you can kind of start drawing an isometric to help visualize things, I think it makes some of these a little bit easier to do. Did you have any questions there, Allie? Or?
What would you do for this 1.2?
So for 7, we've got the edge at 2. So there's a point here at 2, and we're trying to figure out which edge is that going to be. So most likely, because there's nothing going on here, there's got to be some hidden edge behind, and it's got to be going straight down. Because remember, if you have a point and it's an edge, a line it'll be a line in two views. So if I'm drawing this just real briefly, if our top is a point, then our front is a line, and our right side is going to be a line as well. So we've got to figure out what line goes with that. So probably the easiest way to do that is to start looking at what's lining up with this. And the only thing that lines up pretty perfect with it is that N to W. So it's probably that hidden line N to W there for number 2. We good?
Yep.
Okay. If you have any other questions, feel free to email, but hopefully, you know, giving you this little bit of visualization. I actually have a more complete picture here I can show you. Hopefully that helps a little bit, and that's tracking lesson 2.